We've been celebrating the genius of Tony Hancock this morning on what would have been his 90th birthday. Born in the West Midlands, the comedian made his name with his own radio and TV show, of course.
BBC Television presents Tony Hancock in Hancock's Half Hour.
Hold out your hand, yes? Now, this won't hurt. You'll just feel a slight prick on the end of your thumb.
Well, I'll bid you good day then. Thank you very much. If you want any more, don't hesitate to get in touch with me.
Where are you going?
Have me tea and biscuits.
That's just a smear.
Well, how much do you want then?
Well, a pint, of course.
A pint? Look, I'm raving mad. You must be joking. That's very nearly an armful.
I didn't realise we were going to play that when I mentioned that at the start of this. Tony Hancock, one half of the writing team that put those incredible words into that miserable mouth. He's on the line now. Alan Simpson, half of Galton and Simpson, joins us. Alan, morning.
Good morning.
I had no idea we were going to play the Blood Donor when I said that. I love it. We're talking about some of the, the stone me's and the oh blimey and all that kind of stuff. Did you write all of that? Was all of that written, Alan?
Oh yeah. Oh, every syllable. Yeah, I mean Tony used to came up with one or two, which obviously were West Midland exposed. We got them in. It's not my hammer.
Right.
Meaning it's it's not my choice.
Right. But the rest of it, everything.
We'd never heard of that, but we used to use that. But the rest of it was actually stone me. I mean, that was a London expression, really. Quite often Tony did things, Cockney stuff, and he didn't really understand what it meant. And he used to, after the show, he come and said, he'd do it perfectly. Then he'd come over and say, what did that mean?
You think he'd ask first, wouldn't you? And then...
No, he was very trusting.
Well, incredible writing as well. And when you look back at the body of your work, you must be so proud of... I mean, I'm just thinking, Hancock alone, but then adding Steptoe and Son that you and Ray wrote as well.
We did I think altogether we wrote just over 600 scripts.
Does that amaze you? I mean, the sheer volume of work that you managed to get through.
Yeah, I mean, in those days we were young, and nobody ever told us we couldn't do it. Mm. We were writing 40 shows a year. Well, nobody would attempt that now. I mean, we only did it because we didn't know any better, really. Mm. That's what you did in those days.
Was it difficult to still write funny stuff though as well, because it is consistently funny as well, isn't it? That's the thing.
Well, I mean, we used to work all the hours that God sent,
Yeah.
And until it was done, but and it was a joy working with Tony. I mean, it was a great pleasure. That helps, when you're enjoying your work.
Well, was it? Because I'm fascinated. But I've heard you say this before as well. What a pleasure it was to work with him, because he was a complicated man. He was a troubled man, as we know, as we later found out.
It didn't encroach on his work while we were with him. I mean, the really bad days came after we'd finished working with him. The last 3 or 4 years of his life were a bit troubled, mostly caused by the demon alcohol, But he was a good drinker when we knew him, but he never ever worked when under the influence. He used to wait until the show was finished, and then his wife used to bring along a lovely cocktail cabinet, which remained completely untouched until the BBC, the producer, said, "Right, that's it, all over, wrap." Then out come the cocktail cabinet, and he gets hammered.
Grief.
But never while he was working.
But
towards the end, I think it was more than that.
But I mean, famously, there's the well-documented stuff like he wouldn't learn scripts, and he.
Well, that was there again. That was towards the end. It was the last one show.
Yeah.
It was the Blood Donor.
It was the Blood Donor. You can see him reading it, can't you, off the cards?
Right. Well, what happened was that during the weeks of rehearsing, he never drove. His wife used to drive him everywhere. But they were driving home one night from down to their place in Sussex, and his wife had an accident. They drove into a hole in the road, and he banged his head on the windscreen and had a concussion.
Yeah.
And he was out for 2 days. And the BBC had a choice. The producer had a choice whether to postpone the recording, or he came up with the idea of putting teleprompters in. And of course, when Hancock found that he could read the part, he didn't have to go through that agony of learning. He always had a problem learning.
It was back to his radio days almost, though,
Absolutely.
wasn't it?
Yeah. It would have the teleprompters.
Yeah.
And also he knew that all the big American stars, your Jack Bennetts and Bob Hopes, they all used teleprompters. So he thought, why shouldn't I? But it was the worst decision he ever made, because he's so concentrated on reading the thing that he lost the little delicacies of his facial thing. In the end, I mean, I understand from that after we left him, he went working for ITV, and we hear that he didn't even rehearse. He was put in a depot during rehearsals, and he just come in, get his moves, and read the parts. And then gradually went downhill. And then, as I say, the drink took over, and I was, even talking about it after all these years, it's a great tragedy. Yeah.
They're recreating the radio ham today. And I talked to Brian, who's the chairman of the Coventry Amateur Radio Society, earlier. Have a listen to what he said, Alan, a little bit earlier on.
Alan Simpson must have known a radio ham to be able to send that up. It is a wonderful send-up, and we still take the mickey about the programme, because we do refer to it quite often. It is our raining not here also. It's used by radio amateurs very, very regularly.
Did you know a radio ham when you wrote that?
Well, it's honestly, it sends chills down my spine. I live next to the one.
Right.
And our houses were about 2 yards apart. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, you could hear him on his radio, this bloke, he's a doctor. And he was on his radio chatting away to people in all over the world. At 2 o'clock in the morning, he used to keep us awake. And that's what really, I mentioned it to Ray, and Ray said, well, that'd make a marvellous half hour for Tony. And, it was exactly right. It's exactly what happened.
And was that what they used to say? It is not raining here also?
No, I think that was us.
Do you know, I listened to him bits of it yesterday, and what struck me is, and I was saying this to Brian earlier, but he says there is still a real appetite for amateur radio now, despite the internet and all that sort of stuff.
It's lovely. I think that's smashing.
But if you were still writing now, you'd probably be writing about Facebook and Twitter and all of those kind of things.
Indeed. Not that I know anything about it. I mean, I'm still one of the old school. I haven't even got a computer, But no doubt, but you see, Hancock never knew anything about anything. He was always incompetent. So the fact that we know nothing about it wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference.
I think it's fantastic. Alan, great to talk to you.
Honestly, my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
And thanks for all the pleasure that you brought over the many half hours. Not only that, but stepped out for you and Ray as well, and all the other wonderful, wonderful scripts. Alan Simpson.